Better? Okay, perfect. So just wanted to thank you all for coming. Dean Scott, who's the chairman of the board of the Maricopa Domestic Water District, who serves very gallantly, and it's always a hard job to be in these positions, and so certainly want to thank him for coming tonight and representing the board. Again, they have their own rules and regulations. They had sent a letter saying that they wouldn't be able to be here. Chairman Scott and I had the opportunity of speaking on Friday, a wonderful conversation, and we were just able to talk about the reason for which we wanted to come together today and have this conversation, and have it kind of elected to elected, and just kind of discuss some of the issues that are out there. And Mr. Scott was able to receive some emails that I sent him regarding some of our concerns and some of the things that we have in the way of supporting documentation. And so, we'll just kind of go back and forth. And please, I'm so sorry that it feels like you're kind of in a firing line here. So please don't take it as such. We just simply wanted to again, address these things and find a way to get through them if we can. And hopefully find an amicable resolution, because I think that's what everybody's after. So with that, I'll leave it to council. Council, do you want to start? You want me to start with some questions, or? Okay. So again, Mr. Scott and I had the opportunity to speak and to talk about some of the concerns that we're having as a system and as a fire department. I think those are probably some of our biggest concerns. So just to give some history to those watching or to those that are out there, one of the things and the challenges that we face is that anytime you have multiple water systems in a given area, like a city, and you have one fire department, they have to be able to respond to each of those districts where the people or the constituents live. Irrespective of where they live, all of them pay different rates, right? Global pays one rate, Maricopa Domestic pays a rate, and they do so in either rates to the water for the usage, or they do so in a taxing district. So Maricopa Domestic and Seven Ranches are both taxing districts that they have taxing authority to impose, so that they have a budget by which they can maintain the system. And so, that's a perfectly fair way of going about it and doing it. But at the same time, one of the things that we have kind of struggled with in the recent years is that we feel like that we had an IGA, and that IGA wasn't necessarily being honored. And so what that does is that our fire department doesn't have the knowledge when they show up to a fire hydrant that a hydrant is out of service. And so you can kind of imagine that if you're a resident or a homeowner, that you see a fire hydrant sitting there, you expect to show, that if a fire department is called that services the entire city, irrespective of whose water it is or it pertains to, that ultimately you expect it to work, right? And you expect the flow is going to come out of it, and your house is going to be saved, and that's what you think you've paid for. And so I think that's kind of been one of the challenges. Mr. Scott and I had a conversation about some understandings or disagreements on whether the IGA was signed or not. I sent him a copy of the one that we have that clearly shows 6 signatures on it. And now again, I certainly want to turn it over and let him talk, and if you have any concerns or questions for us or other things. But one of the proposals that we're really looking to do is how do we fix that problem? How do we fix the problem that nobody wants to see anybody rely on something and then not have it? And so this is where the crux of the problem comes. And if you dive through this issue deeper and deeper and deeper, what you get is disagreements, and some of them are very good legal disagreements. It is true that in the Arizona Constitution, or according to state statute, that water districts don't have to provide hydrant or fire flow. But at the same time, there are court cases out there that clearly dictate and show that once fire flow is being offered, there's a reliance upon it, right? And that reliance to take it away, if it wasn't being, adequate enough, creates a liability problem. And I think that when you look at the potential lawsuits that can happen from something like that, that clearly is something that we all lose sleep over. Anybody who's, has a constituency, nobody wants to see that occur. Because at the end of the day, that's a lawsuit to the county, it's a lawsuit to the district, it's a lawsuit to the city, it's a lawsuit to the fire department. I mean, it's just, the list goes on and on and on. And ultimately, we don't want to see that. And I think we all want to see that we find a way through it. There's also been some disagreements in flow and in testing of that flow. And how does one fire hydrant produce such a maximum flow and another fire hydrant just up the way in the same area doesn't produce a flow, or at least not anywhere near the other one? You would imagine that something that's all linked together and has a pressurized system would have similar flow in similar areas. Not always true, but again, variances of such extremities can really cause a lot of doubt and a lot of questions. And so, these are the things I think we really wanted to get out there on the open and talk about. Certainly want to give the district an opportunity to respond to some of these thoughts. And ultimately, the city has then therefore created a proposal. And I know that proposal is not always, easily received. Because it can seem like we're giving something up. And so one of the things that the city has tried to do in this proposal, and again, that's for the chairman and his board to work through and decide, but ultimately, if we can find a way, one of the things that the city wants to do and put it, again, we're putting it on record out here today, we're willing to put it into writing. And ultimately, Chairman Scott and I were able to talk that, anything we do has to be in the public, has to be put into, agendas and into the minutes, and it's, permanent record, and everything is legally and contractually binding. And that's what we really would like to do, is to create a contractual obligation between the city and the district by which we can find ways to solve these flow problems. And we think that we have a solution to that. And so in the process by which, if we were to go forward with this, if it was amenable to the district ultimately, that we would contractually bind ourselves to make sure that we do a few things. That if we were to assume those responsibilities, then we would then therefore hire the personnel of the district, minus an independent contractor, right? Because that's what an independent contractor is, something separate. You would have to create a separate agreement there. But we'd hire the personnel of the district. We would furthermore contractually bind the city and its service agreement with the residents, which, again, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe it's somewhere between 200 and 300 residents approximately. Is that correct?
I think it's more
around 400 or 500. Okay, and that also includes the additional district that was added in, kind of where you live. So there's two separate pieces of Maricopa Domestic, but they have been merged together in recent years due to elections and other things. But ultimately, one of those things is that we would bind the city to guaranteeing the rates that they pay now. I know that there's always a concern that if you go from one system to another, that the rates might change astronomically, and that can be a burden to anybody. And so we don't want to see that happen. And so we would contractually bind those rates to be almost fixed. And I say almost because, every water district out there has responsibilities to, as federal guidelines come down, you have to, increase certain measures of the water, and therefore every time you have to take more particulates out, it costs more money, right? So those costs have to get passed on. But ultimately those are negligible as they happen from a regulatory standard, or also as the costs of maintenance increases, or those things, or inflation. So with the minimal increases, but not going from I don't know, I'm just arbitrarily say $30 to $200, right? That would not transpire. That would be contractually guaranteed. And then probably one of the most important things is that aside from everything else, clearly we think at that point that we'd be able to guarantee the fire flow. We would be able to have that independent testing done, be very transparent, very open, all public records. And so, those are things that anybody can see and witness and access. But probably on top of the public safety side of it is that it also is beneficial to the citizens of that district when they can save, because ultimately the taxing district goes away. And if the taxing district goes away, then depending on the property that one owns in that district, then their taxes can go down. So again, I don't have the number in front of me, I have it on the computer, but I think it's 3.9 is the approximate taxing authority by Maricopa Domestic. Seven Ranches is somewhere about 5.93, so that's $5.93. And so you calculate that against a $100,000 home, a $200,000 home, a $1 million home, et cetera. And so we all pay taxes as being homeowners. That's how your taxes are assessed. And so those, at a $100,000 home in the district, be somewhere in the neighborhood of $360 or $70 or $80. If it's a $200,000 home and property, it would be, somewhere in the neighborhood of 500. And so, and that goes up, right? So if you have a $300,000 home, et cetera, then ultimately, that could be $800, $900, $1,000 that every year you no longer have to pay as a member of the taxing district. So these are the proposals that we have outlaid and that we want to contractually bind ourselves to, because we think they're fair, and that if we are missing something, we certainly want to hear from the district and hear from your thoughts on things, and how we can find resolution if possible. And really, that was the premise of this meeting, is we really just wanted to talk about it. And again, I can't convey enough that poor Mr. Scott here feels all by himself over here and has shown up to the firing line. So we really, really appreciate that. And we want to thank you again for coming this evening. And thank you on behalf of the entire Maricopa City Council. So I'll turn it over to you. And if you want to add things, or if I left something out, or if you can think of other things that we should be discussing, please lay it out there. There's a microphone right in front of you, because we are recording this. We want to make sure that it's fair.
Thank you for letting me come. I'm probably going against what the board wanted, but I wanted to come and just express some of my thoughts. That the way I understand it, going back to the fire flow at the hydrants, they were all good or exceeded some of the requirements. So and that's one thing I think we both need to work on, is that probably go back and redo all those tests and just make sure that what we see is what's really there. And
I don't hear you very well.
okay. Sorry. I think, of course, I have to go back to the board with all this, so I can't make any promises or I can't say yay or nay, everything. And I hope you understand that. Ever since this process started, I think there's been some contention, and I'd like to see that go away and be more open and honest with each other. And I think we can do that. As far as any details about what pressures or anything about the fire hydrants, right off the top of my head, I don't know what those values are. But I think that if we just again go back to redoing all those pressure and flow tests for the hydrants, and everybody involved be in attendance at each one, I think would be a good thing. And forgetting about whatever's happened in the past. And then as far as the IGA, that IGA was signed by Don Pearson, if I remember his name correctly. and then Joe took over the chairmanship, and then he resigned and moved away. Then I moved up and I don't know anything. So we wanted to change the IGA to what's the word, to instead of having the old name of the old district, the corrected name of the district, and some of the wording in the IGA needed to be changed. I think that's where we need to start. Go from there. That's all I have.
Thank you, Chairman. If I can pass it along to city council members, perhaps they have additional questions or have some clarifications on things. So if it's okay, we'll go to Marvin and Brown, the council member, and then also to Vice Mayor Smith. Go ahead.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for attending, Mr. Scott. There have been a great deal of communication back and forth from the mayor, city manager Horst, to you and board members. I can't help but notice that you're here, you're just you by yourself, and it would seem to me be an affront to us that your other members did not show up. With lack of respect, because we have, in good faith, tried as best we could to communicate and offer something that's really shouldn't be refused. But I know you really can't speak for them, but it's insulting that you're here by yourself and they didn't show up. It really is. Please convey that to them.
Chairman Scott, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I look at things on this topic as an elected official, elected to represent the citizens of Maricopa, the businesses of Maricopa, those in the Heritage District, in the Maricopa Domestic Water District, those in Global Water District, everyone. And so when I began hearing about the challenges in the Maricopa Domestic Water District, things such as fire hydrants not working, the water flow pressure not being substantial enough to support the businesses, or businesses that might be 2 stories, 3 stories within, that want to come to the Heritage District area. And mostly the public safety aspect in terms of being able to support a house fire, a business fire. That's what concerns me the most. I feel like public safety is the #1 most important thing. Economic development is important to us, but to me that's second priority to making sure that our residents are safe, that our businesses that are currently there are safe. So when I look at the things that have been offered, I'm baffled in terms of why the water board is apprehensive. I can't come up with a reason why they would be apprehensive, because I feel as though the maintaining the water rates for the current owner until they were able to sell at some point is really valuable. That's something that we're going to contract with each and every homeowner. The fact that we would be able to provide water flow substantial enough for all of the businesses, all of the residents, water safety in terms of fire hazards, fires in the district, the improvement in the infrastructure that would also assume the debt that comes along with what Maricopa Domestic has. All of those to me as a resident and as a city council member seem to be extremely valuable, and I can't come up with a flaw in the plan, and I hate the day that something happens at a home or a business when there is a fire and the fire hydrant's not there or the water flow's not there to save that person, to save that business. That just really concerns me a lot. So my biggest challenge is trying to understand what the board has against the idea, because it eliminates the pressure. I feel as though there's pressure on that board with all of the challenges that you have in infrastructure development that needs to happen in the area, maintaining, I've already spoken, in terms of the fire safety and being able to provide all of the needs that are within that district. I'm not sure, you must be really intimidating with my hands like, I think I'm just cold. But So if you could help me with that, or at some point in the future, help us with that, I think that would be hugely helpful, because I don't see a downside for my residents in the domestic water area, for my residents surrounding the domestic water area, for the businesses that are there, and for the businesses that are wanting to come. I just don't see a downside. So at either tonight or sometime in the future, if you could help me understand that, that would be hugely helpful.
Well, seemed like from the very beginning there was contention and between the city and the district, and it just set us on the wrong, not on the wrong track, but against anything that the city was offering, and that's pretty much why. Okay.
So we can work through that. Awesome.
So I can't make any promises,
I know.
but
All right. Well, that helps a lot.
Councilmember Wade.
Thank you, sir. I really do appreciate you coming this evening and sitting down for our chat. I tend to agree with Councilman Brown that it is a little disconcerting that no one else decided to show up but yourself. And I guess as the boss, you got to step out there sometime.
yeah,
And I understand that. But
that's
But just what you said from the very beginning, that's kind of what I'm interested in, is at what point in time was there an agreement, and what happened to sour that agreement or the relationship between the district and the city. And at that point, who was in charge of making those decisions that may have made a difference? Because we're offering something different. We're offering something based on what Vice Mayor said, the concern and security of the community as a whole. We don't look at Maricopa as the Glenwild subdivision, Tortosa community district. It is Maricopa. And because that's the way we are concerned, that's what brings this to the table in the first place, because our concern runs towards the safety and convenience and support of the community. So my question is, if only you are here now and only you see it necessary to come here, what's going to cause the others to want to participate in something that they wouldn't show up for a meeting for?
Well, I'm not sure when it just seems like we lost communication somewhere, and so I can't tell what exactly when happened or who decided not to keep somebody informed or what. But it's I think that, again, go back to, I'd like to start anew. Okay? That's about all
Councilmember
I have
Video.
to say.
Mr. Scott, again, thank you for showing up. We really do appreciate you. Everybody on this council feels the same way about the public safety side. We all want our residents, all of our residents. Like Henry said, there is no Tortosa heritage. We are one. And in saying that, my other concern is that we keep going backwards. This is not going forward. That's what concerns me. The other thing that concerns me is our firefighters, our firefighters show up with 500 gallons of water. Next thing you know, they're out of it. They could be in the middle of a fire. I'm concerned about our firefighters. Those men and women protect us, not one part of the district. And that's very concerning to me that this happened today, because I understand what you're saying, but if you're going to move forward, you can't keep looking backwards. And that's a concern that we would have been able to have a discussion today. And again, I know you don't have the power over everybody. And again, I do appreciate it. But we can't move forward and have discussion if you don't show up to the table. That's really what I want to have conveyed back, that let's assume the last deal was horrible. I'm going to assume it is. But that's not the deal we're trying to put on the table today. If we can't move forward and we're going to keep looking backwards, we're never going to get anything accomplished. And I hate to see what happens if one firefighter or one resident in this district was to be killed, hurt, or whatever. Even, I might as well mention the dogs and puppies and kitties. We want no one to be hurt here. We're not trying to be the 900-pound gorilla. We're just trying to be concerned about our residents, our citizens, the people that everyone up here cares about. And I know you do, and I know they do too. But I know your answer is constantly what happened before, but if this shows me, how are we going to move forward? Thank you again, and I really do appreciate you showing up.
Councilman Manfredi.
Ah, jeez, I got this stuck in my face here. Stupid glasses. Chairman, thanks so much for coming today. And as everybody said, all those things are important. I believe in relationships. I believe in that networking part of life that you have to get together and talk. And you're here today. That's a big first step. Let's have that conversation and continue it. I'd be happy to go to lunch or whatever with any of the board members and have the conversation about what we're trying to accomplish in the Heritage District. Because it's not only about the fire and the public safety, it's about what's going to happen there over time. And there's a lot that's going to happen there over time. And, you know, some of the houses that are there, they want to improve, but they can't improve for different things and different fire codes that they have and all that stuff. So there's a lot that can happen in the Heritage District, and we just need to work together to get through it. And thank you for what you said. It's not about the past, it's about moving forward and the future. And hopefully that's going to be a bright, prosperous one for all of us. Thank you for coming today.
Councilwoman Gossin. Thank you. So feel free to interrupt me at any time if you have a thought or a concern. I think that I would like to try and again, without you being able to promise anything, because again, we understand what that means. You know, we act as a collective body, not as individuals. However, just being here is really a great step forward. I think that one of the things we've got to try and iron out is in the process of moving forward, what does that look like? Anytime you try and do hydrant testing, it costs money to bring out an independent reviewer. That way it's not our guy, it's not your guy, it's an independent, so it's third party. You know, there's no bias on your side or our side. You know, we can mutually agree with who that person is, but it costs money. And so I think that if we were to move forward with something like that, then we're going to have to accept a few things. We're going to have to say that, you know, first off, we as a collective whole, and your board and our council, do we accept the fact that there is a current fire code that is a national safety standard code by which we agree to live by? And that's the code that the city has adopted, which is within our purview according to state statutes and the Constitution of the state of Arizona. And when we do that, everybody in that district or those boundaries has to officially live by that authority, right? Because it's the fire department that's servicing those different areas. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that if we agree to that, then we also agree that there are different requirements for different locations. And I think that's something that we've also kind of hit a snag on as I've read through the materials that you and I corresponded with this weekend, that there's a certain level of unease with what is acceptable and what isn't. And so if we want to move forward, then we're going to have to say if we accept the fire code, then the fire code absolutely specifically outlays the realities when it comes to different buildings. So even though this may be one fire hydrant, if this fire hydrant primarily serves a bunch of two-story commercial buildings, those are going to be built differently than is a house that sits on 1 acre that was built 30 years ago and is made of lumber. Right? So the flow and the pressure that this fire hydrant has to come up with is going to be different. There's not a one-size-fits-all, right? Wherein the, you know, if it's 1,000, I'm just throwing out arbitrary numbers here, but arbitrary number, if it's 1,000, that is what is required through the fire code, the updated fire code, to put out the fire. At a house, if it's 1,000, that's great. But if it's a 2-story building, it might be a lot more. And it might be 1,500 or 2,000. And if that particular hydrant can't meet the flow while simultaneously other hydrants meet the flows that they're supposed to hit, then that's a problem, okay? I think the third thing we need to boil down is that I think this is one of the areas that we have some discontent in, is that as a public entity, the water district being a public entity, it has a taxing authority, therefore it's by law, just like you said earlier, you can't make decisions by yourself because you're one of 5 members of an elected board. But in that process, it also means that transparency is a must. And so public records requests have to be honored. And that means the access to any information that's requested. And so we're going to have to agree that if that information has not been forthcoming, that we have to agree to get that information ASAP. Because otherwise we can't know what we don't know, right? If only one party knows it and both parties are trying to work through something, that's not transparent, right? And that's just not acceptable. The other part of that is that, again, we have to be able to randomly test multiple places. And what has transpired up to this point is my understanding is that, the district will agree to testing one fire hydrant in one area, but that's it. Well, that is ripe with potential for possible infraction, right? I mean, it's very easy to turn off 6 fire hydrants over here and then make sure that one gets all the flow that it needs to pass the test, right? Now, I'm not saying that that's happening, but we don't know what's happening because we don't have the information from the previous, as well as we haven't been given permission to do this. And yet, we know through a recent example, really 2 examples, that this is occurring, at least the flow is not being sustained. We know that from when the recent house fires that happened in the Heritage District, when the fire departments went there, they found inadequate flow appropriate to put out the fires in that particular area. And that causes multiple problems, because especially if there's another district, let's say the line of one district is here and another district is there, and the hydrant on this side doesn't have the appropriate flow. In order to save the house, they might connect to the hydrant over here. But the problem is over here, this is a different district. So now you have different people paying for the water that this district is supposed to be providing. And that separation creates problems. And so I think that's the first thing we're trying to figure out and see if we can't mitigate as a district to city, if we can't look back to that proposal and say, is there a better way to do this? Is a consolidation of these things a more appropriate way? That way there's no more line. Because a house fire doesn't care where the line is. That's an arbitrary thing that we've done from a taxation standpoint, right? We've said this side of the line pays X, that side of the line pays Y, and that works in our little world, but it doesn't work for a fire. It doesn't work for a firefighter. The other thing I think we have to look at then is, what does that look like from a long-term perspective? It's clear that everybody has different opinions in this room, in the city, in these districts, of how this city should move forward. And everybody has differences of opinion. And that's okay, that's a great thing. But by the same token, we have a system of government that says we elect people to given positions to make those decisions to move us forward. And one of the things that I would think that all of us could argue one way or the other is that the election that has been made over the city council has been one in which they want things to move. People of this city want things to grow. Now, all of us don't want them to grow in the same way or in the same spot, but I think we could argue pretty easily that along the 347 is a commercial corridor. And in that commercial corridor, there is certainly homes off to the back of them, but on that frontage side, there is commercial. And so one of the things that people at home may not know is that when you buy a property in this state, especially in what's called an AMA or a Water Management Association or area, that is put in place by the state of Arizona, because all the drops of water in this state are accounted for. Everyone that runs on a river, everyone that is assumed to be known underneath in the wells and in the reservoirs, and in the lakes, all those drops of water are accounted for. And so what happens is if Vice Mayor Smith comes along and says, I'm going to buy 100 acres, and in that 100 acres, I'm going to put a new series of stores. Okay, well, it's in the commercial corridor, so the zoning is met. The purchase has been lawfully done. It goes through the appropriate permitting processes. So everything seems to be on track here. But then something occurs, and that is when you start to break it down so that you can, as a developer, say, you're gonna get 2 acres for your store, and you're gonna get 5 acres for your store, and once you divide that 100 acres 5 times or more, you now have to prove something called an assured water supply. And what that is you're telling the state of Arizona that you have enough capacity to fill all the needs for those given businesses, for their needs, plus fire flow, and that assured water supply is going to be there for the next 100 years. Because nobody wants to spend $20 million building a building, right? And then find out in 5 years there's no water there. Because what worth is your building at that point? What worth is your business? It doesn't exist. And so assured water supply is something that's really, really important, but at the same time, it's also something that says it's like a commodity. You have to buy and sell and trade it because there's no more water out there, right? And so what's known is what is bought and sold and traded. And one of the challenges, and again, not to defame in any way, but one of the challenges that we know we're having, especially in these commercial corridors that reside within the Heritage District, within the Maricopa Domestic Waters District, is that they can't subdivide beyond 5 times. So again, if I have 100 acres and I want to put a Denny's there and a Sprouts there and a restaurant there and some other business there, I can do that up to 5 times, because at that point, the district no longer has an assured water supply. And without an assured water supply, that means there can't be any more separation, which really flies in conflict with the state's constitution. Because even though it's legal and it's allowable, the premise of our state is that we live in a property right state. And if you have 100 acres, shouldn't you be able to develop it the way you want to within the zoning parameters? But again, if you don't have the assured water supply, you can only do it up to that 5. So it doesn't put people in the wrong necessarily, but it limits growth, it stymies production, and it really doesn't allow for things that really, when we talk about the future of water being there, if that supply isn't there as indicated by the state permitting process, then what is the guarantee that it will be there in the future when even a building that builds there within the 5 rule is still going to be sufficient, right? We just don't know. And that's one of the other fears. And so that's one of the other things that we really are trying to work through with the district. And I think another reason why we would really like to focus on this proposal is because the proposal provides for that. We have the accessibility to a provider that has more than enough assured water supply, which guarantees every resident, that ability, and every future resident and every future business or development in that area, as per Arizona property rights, the ability to move forward. And so I think that's a really big deal and something else we're going to have to come to terms on and discuss how do we move forward if we can't agree on some of these basic tenets, right? And I think those are the things we're going to have to really work on. So, Vice Mayor, go ahead.
So I may be wrong, but I heard you and the mayor kind of saying the same thing. And if that's true, I'm going to reiterate what I heard. But if that's true, I'd like to throw out another thought. But what I thought I heard the two of you say is, let me go back and check the hydrants and see, are they all working? Let me go back and check the pressure. And I believe I heard you saying, okay, let's talk about what that means and let's work on that together. But I also heard you say, this is going to cost money because every test costs money and it's not cheap. So I would like to put out the idea or the option, an additional option, to have that relationship with the board so that they begin to feel comfortable with the promises that are being made by the city to provide fire safety, provide water flow, to remove your tax district, to maintain your water rates, all the things that are being promised, and to help you feel comfortable through the relationships and understanding and knowing our desire to make that a better place, safer place to live, and not have to worry about proving one fire hydrant from one entity to another entity, but to get to a point where we're like, this makes sense for our residents, for our businesses. It takes the pressure off the water district. It helps to eliminate the the debt that's owed in terms of the city would take care of that. I would like to throw out option number 2, like, let's just get to the point where we have that relationship and you trust us, and we can move forward with the idea that the city can provide the infrastructure, they have the funds to provide the things that are needed within that water district. So for me, that's option number 2, rather than spending all this money on doing this test, that test, does this fire hydrant work, does that, because to me, it's like a moot point if we can improve what's available, if we can improve what the challenges are, if we can improve fire safety in that district, why don't we just get comfortable and move forward? So I'd like to put that forward too to your board, if you could take that message back as well.
Nance, just to let you know, it's $550 to test a fire hydrant. I just had to go through $550 each fire hydrant. So multiple small businesses in a row with different fire hydrants, each one of those people are going to have to spend $550. I just went through it with the company that I work for, and it gets costly. I mean, for a small business, so that's a true cost that happens. So,
Yeah, and I think just for clarity's sake, I mean, the disagreement lies at the district city level. So I think the city and the district would be responsible for having to foot that bill, and that would be part of the agreement that we would have to come to. But I think Vice Mayor brings up a really interesting point about trying to find trust. Trust is earned. It's not, just instantly given, even though I think we'd all like it to be that way. So I guess I would look for your advice or your counsel. What do you think, without disclosing, things that are e-session related or other things? I mean, is there any counsel that you could give to us in ways to help improve that relationship so that we could truly achieve what I think what we all hope to find is to take the reservations that individuals have and put those to bed? And find a way to establish that relationship of trust, which is so critical in moving forward with something that can be seen as so monumentous as this.
I agree. I just... I'm not sure what we really need to do is to get that exchange going, but I think we should make the effort and go forward.
Okay, I guess I would follow on with this question then to you, and really to the council. And the reason I ask this is clearly we wanted this meeting to be held in public because we feel that these issues are one of transparency, one of, again, this is recorded, it lives in digital world forever, and people can watch it whether they're here or not, and they can go back and watch it later, and I think that's important. But I think that your board recently sent kind of a thanks but no thanks offer to come tonight, which again you and I spoke about. So again, many, many thanks for showing up. I explained to you on the phone, I totally respect your authority and your ability not to have shown up based on the letter and what your board said, but I give you many, many props for doing so. And for really sitting here feeling like you're on the firing line. I mean, I feel like this is a congressional hearing at some point, right? And so again, many, many thanks. But I hope more than anything, what we're hoping trying to establish is that there are areas of concern that need to be resolved. And so I guess my question to council is, in that letter, you did offer, or the board offered, an opportunity to work with myself or any member of this council to come and speak to an e-session. Now, while I have no problem with that, I'm not sure that legally it passes the smell test because again, I don't want to talk for legal back there, but legal there are very specific rules that e-session can say or not say as to what you can do or not do. Again, I think that's one of the reasons why we tried to do it this way, is because A, we wanted to make sure that it's public information, that it's transparent, that everybody can understand these issues. And that secondly, is that, it wasn't just me making deals, just like you're not making deals, but rather just trying to, so I want to convey that I accept the invitation, but I don't know that legally we can do it. And I don't know that I can legally participate in something that would be considered illegal, even if it was okay with your board, because then it would put the city in some liability as a representative from the city. So I'm not quite sure how to do that, but again, I just wanted to put it out there that, again, the council has had an opportunity to talk to you, to ask questions, to hear your responses. Certainly, I have no problem with furthering that. I don't think any one of these don't. And Councilman Manfredi even offered as much to go to lunch with whomever and have these discussions. And he likes to eat. But certainly, I just wanted to convey to you that we would, if it's acceptable by the council, certainly we could do something like that. But I just don't know to what parameters. And I would think that, again, barring legal counsel, that there would probably be a limitation there as it came to e-session.
I'm not sure how it can be done either, but I think it needs to be done somehow. However, legally, it can be done.
Okay, well, again, appreciate that exposition of will there. Councilmember Wade.
You may or may not be able to answer this question, and I appreciate it. How come your board doesn't trust us?
It's just that I think it goes back to when all this started was some contention came up and it just soured everything.
Was that prior to 2008?
I don't know.
Because I wasn't here in 2008.
I couldn't tell you exactly when it started.
Okay. Because we want to be able to extend the hand of trust so we can start fresh.
I was here in 2005.
I've been here since 1985, so I've seen all the changes and everything.
Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess what Nancy and everybody has said is, couldn't we offer this again, one more time, to iron out? I mean, is that if we offer the same situation that we have right here, couldn't we meet that way? So it's open?
See, to be honest, all these offers were not offered before. I can't.
So if we were to be able to, again, once again, from a formal standpoint, put together a new or current updated letter that had all of these things once again in it from a kind of bullet point perspective, right? Just simple outlay saying this is what we'd like to contractually bind ourselves to. Do you think that would gain traction with the board to send that over? Because, I mean, to Rich's point, I mean, certainly I think we all want to do this, but there's only so many times you can get this many people and their schedules together, and we have to follow legal rules as to, agendas and putting stuff out and quorum notices and those types of things. However, again, building relationships is important. And I think that, certainly myself or others, we could all take a turn, visiting with, a given member of your board if think they'd be amenable to us contacting them and going to lunch with them, for example, or, just sitting down on a one-on-one, because as long as that formal letter is in our hands and your hands, then we could just review in detail, in depth. They could watch this video, they could have, and we could all be talking the same language again. Do you think that there's value in that?
Or Mayor, could it be subcommittee to subcommittee? Is that a possibility, to introduce the letter again and answer questions?
Anything is
More of
possible.
a personal approach?
I don't know.
Again, I think the subcommittee is a matter of getting those people together. So again, I think if we can get that letter to you, again, I wanted to make sure I got your answer. Did you say that was probably amenable to have that letter once again, just bullet pointed what all these offers are in there, et cetera, that each of the board members can make sure they have a copy in their hands, they can ask questions, they can call me or other members of the council and just have a discussion.
And send it to the district.
Send it to the district, okay. So send it to individual emails, send it to a given person at the district?
Yes, the letter that you wrote last, the same way.
All right, so just just send it to the district. Here's your letter that came, and so we'll just send it the same way that we sent the first letter. We'll send it via email as well as via registered certified mail as well. Okay. What else? Any other questions or concerns? I do want to convey that while certainly you and I had this conversation about staffs, and that our staff are amazing people on both sides, and they push because they're trying to follow the direction that we as electeds give, right? And so, however that comes across sometimes, it can be good, it can be bad, but certainly there's an agenda by which the agenda is to get something done. And I think we're all in agreement that we got to get something done here. But I will also say that time is of the essence. I think that from a perspective of our staff, I think a perspective from the city council, as you've kind of heard tonight, we really are trying to feel like we're being as extending the hand of friendship as possible. Whether that has been received on the other side by those who are not in attendance, I don't know. I don't know if you know, other than what the letter said, and so, but again, I understand what you're saying about that potential sour taste in the mouth that may exist from the initial indication of exchange of ideas. And I think that in government, there's oftentimes an exchange of ideas, right? That not the first thing proposed is the thing that is the final thing. It's kind of like baking a pie. You put in different ingredients and you work through it until you're finally ready to stick it in the oven and bake it and serve it up. And I think that's kind of where we're at. But at the same time, this pie is ready to come out of the oven. We've got to kind of move quickly in trying to perhaps establish those relationships with your other board members so that we can have those one-on-one conversations, that we can get you that letter ASAP, so that they can be thinking about it. But I don't think that we want to go too much beyond the recognition of 30 days, or even I don't know if 30 days is even too long. I mean, it might just be a couple weeks, and I know we have a Thanksgiving holiday in there, and so it's going to get tricky. But I would hope that if you wouldn't mind conveying to them, I have no problem, again, with council permission or whatever, I have no problem calling each and every member of your board, talking to them directly. I want to convey them the same information that we've conveyed here tonight so that they can make an educated decision and they can talk with you and you guys can discuss it in your e-sessions or whatever that is appropriate to rectifying this as quickly as possible, because I think we can't put a time frame or a price on someone's safety. And that's the real issue at hand. And knowing what we know and having in writing what we have from fire people who have been on the scene, that have been to fire hydrants that have not had the sufficient flow because they're there on scene where multiple hydrants are being used at the same time, therein lies the biggest problem. And we have to fix that ASAP. And if that means finding and accepting hopefully this proposal, then that's the way we need to hopefully reach that conclusion independently and yet collectively. But again, time is of the essence because we just can't go for a long period of time because you never know when the next fire is going to break out. So, any other questions or concerns?
Just wanted to mention also, Mr. Scott, it's prohibiting the economic growth in the area. Dollars and cents, tax dollars could be huge to the city, and fixing roads and doing what we do with our tax dollars here. So it is also a huge economic growth. It's prohibiting it to happen in that area. There's plenty of businesses there that do have, plenty of pieces of land there that won't be able to be built on because of this. And there are people who want to come to this city. We are the second largest growing city in the state of Arizona and 15th overall in the country. And we're only 17 years old, going on 17 years old now. So it's really, it's prohibiting the growth. And we all want things. I hear it all the time. I want this, I want that. We're running out of space, and there's a lot of good space there that these people could be enjoying these places. So again, to share with the board, we're not trying to hurt anybody. We're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. We're trying to grow this city for things that everybody wants, not just what we want. We hear from everybody what they want to see here. And you can only expand so far because we're landlocked, and there's some great land that could be being used, but there's no water, there's no growth. Thanks again for coming, and I really do appreciate it.
Chairman Scott, do you have anything you want to close with, or thoughts or ideas?
No.
Again, on behalf of the entire Maricopa City Council, thank you very much. I know it takes courage to show up by yourself and answer questions from so many people, but I hope we're able to convey, we really want to work through this, but time is of the essence. We're kind of on a deadline, and hopefully we'll be able to speak a little bit afterwards. We're about ready to go into a city council meeting here, but let's close this up, and ultimately, if you wouldn't mind, you and I can talk again, and we'll talk about getting that letter to you, as well as the discussions set up with your other board members. So with that, thank you very much, and can I have a motion to adjourn, please? So motion is a second. Second, any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned.